I would like to call to order the regular meeting of the Boulder Valley School District Board of Education for today, Tuesday, February 10th, 2015. Sandy, will you please call the roll?
Albright.
Here.
Belville. Here. Benford. Here. Fuqua. Here. Marquis. Here. Myers. Here. Reed.
Here.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I would like to let everyone know, people who have joined us here this evening, and thank you for coming, and people who are watching, of the Boulder Valley School District vision. We develop our children's greatest abilities and make possible the discovery and pursuit of their dreams, which when fulfilled will benefit us all. We provide a comprehensive and innovative approach to education and graduate successful, curious, lifelong learners who confidently confront the great challenges of their time. And that is why we're here, is to talk about our students and our education. The first item of business this evening is the superintendent's report. Dr. Messenger.
Good evening, President Albright, members of the board, members of the audience. Thanks for being here. So I have just a few brief comments tonight on some issues we've been working on. First of all, as I had mentioned before, we'll be sending out to the parent community and staff and students a letter around student assessment this week that will, we sent a letter in January advising them of our spring assessment plan, and then this particular communication will be more detail around that and also the specific schedules for each school. So each school has its own unique schedule, so those will be distributed to the community so they have that. Generally, we start early March with the first round of assessment. Some of the communications may be the entire battery of assessments that will occur this spring. Others might just focus on March and we'll roll the other out later. Either way, we'll make sure our parent community is adequately informed. So that communication will be coming shortly. We had committed to you that we'll give you some samples of that so you just have a sense by level, elementary, middle, and high, the kind of scheduling that's required to do that. As I'd mentioned in a previous communication with you, we are doing our very best to minimize the impact that this scheduling has on other instructional activities in the building. So there's a certain amount of time the students need to be in a testing environment, and mostly it's online. There are a couple of exceptions to that, but mostly the assessment is online. So we've coordinated the use of our mobile devices, et cetera, so that, again, we can try to minimize the impact on that. And obviously we will assess that when we're done. So this is our first year to do this comprehensive CMAS, Colorado Measure of Academic Success assessment, as well as the PARC assessment. So stay tuned. I just want you to know that communication is going out. I know you've received some correspondence from members of our parent community expressing some concern about the amount of time of the assessments. We're given guidance on the amount of time we schedule for the test, so we're doing that. The other thing I want to mention is that we're continuing to do good work around the bond planning. I just want to keep you updated on that. So we are in the process of posting the Director of Innovation, whose salary will be paid for out of the bond funds that will help guide our district level work on setting these innovation guidelines for the school district. We also are releasing the request for proposal for consultants around innovation. So we'll get those and evaluate both the proposals for the innovation work and design work for the district, as well as this position on the innovation director. So we'll do that. The other thing we did in the last bond issue with great success, and we're going to do again, is what we call Bond 101, which is where we take leadership of the schools, now in phase 1 schools, which we've identified, that will get some orientation on their work and leadership roles, working with their school communities, and part of that is forming their design advisory team at the school level. So that work will be initiated as well this spring. And last on the bond planning is that, as you know, because you authorized it in the last meeting, is that we are seeking applications for the Bond Oversight Committee. We've gotten a good response. I shared that with you in a communication last week. Just several more last evening I received. And so we did push out, I did a blog on it. We pushed out a communicate all parents. Amy Bounds, camera reporter, did a piece on it. So a good community response. So not unlike the Capital Improvement Planning Committee, we got a good community response. I think you'll be pleased when we bring those forward to you in March for final approval. Okay. The last area I'd like to address is air quality at Casey Middle School. I know we have some public comment you'll hear later this evening on that. I just wanted to give you a brief update, and we might do some follow-up later after we've heard some public comment. I sent out under my signature a communication to the Casey School community. I believe it was right at the end of last week. A one-page overview of the most recent air quality assessment we had completed on the building. We also sent a link to the full report from Quest, the third-party company we contract to do those air quality tests with their sophisticated equipment, well beyond our equipment that we own and use. That link was there so the public, it's Casey's website, so anyone can go look at it now. We pushed it out to the Casey staff and school community, so it's available for their review. This last sampling looked not at hydrogen sulfide, which is an area we've been focusing on. It was on carbon dioxide because we had been doing some adjustments in the air intake in the building, trying to get the right balance for the building. And of course, it's the air intake, the fresh air, that gets the right amount of oxygen in the building so that we don't have too high of a level of carbon dioxide. With 600 children and staff in the building, a lot of oxygen gets consumed. And so all within the normal range or what those test results show. Where we had some elevated levels were air handling equipment that we can make adjustments on, trying to find the right pressure in the building so we can control how much vacuum there is in the building or how much pressure there is going out. That's part of what we do. This is a fairly sophisticated building, and partly because of its high energy efficiency, there are adjustments in this building that we need to continue to monitor. Some of the mitigation efforts with filtration and some of the work in the building has reduced our overall level of toxins in the buildings, which we're pleased about. As you know, we have contracted with Richard Shaughnessy out of the University of Tulsa. Dr. Shaughnessy was in our district in early January. He's looked at all of our data and has analyzed that with his team, and also had a chance to be physically on a campus in our community. He had another set of questions he wanted us to pursue and some suggestions on mitigation, which we have followed up on. We sent him again the most recent air quality test, really just trying to be sure that he has a database of understanding. Those who don't know who Dr. Shaughnessy is, this is his work. He is nationally recognized for his work around indoor air quality. So public buildings, other buildings across the country. He's a very busy guy. This is the work that he does. And so his insight over the appropriate level of healthy air quality is helpful to us, but also those factors in any building that could affect that positively or negatively. So we really appreciate Dr. Shaughnessy's work as well as his associate, Randy Smith. And he's a busy person. We're working hard to find a time we can have him be back in the community so he'll have a chance to visit with staff and parents and other interested community members. I think he can give some presentation of air quality and indoor air quality, his work, and also what his findings have been around our data that we've shared with him and questions he's asked us to follow up on. So to look forward to that. We've also, Dr. Pacheco was a medical doctor who provided us an opinion well over a year ago. We've reached out to the medical community to again help provide communication to our parent community and our staff around what acceptable level of healthy air quality will be. So we're continuing to work on that. So as I've stated publicly numerous times, I'm highly confident that the quality of the air in that building today is safe and the mitigation efforts have been effective. As I've been quoted in the newspaper, we are continuing to fine-tune this system. We are holding it to a standard that we believe is an acceptable level for our students and staff. We are aware that there's been some reporting of irritants in the building. So if that's air quality or other things, we're pursuing those with individual faculty members or families if their children are impacted by that. And if there's any that we haven't heard about, we would welcome that. And we'll continue our communication with the parent community as well as the faculty. We were just visiting earlier that maybe we need to convene a group that we can work with and advise with to both answer questions, but also get this, make sure the information is getting in the community. Not everybody reads emails. We get that. Now there's gotten to be a lot of emails, and so they're all listed on they're all on the website. But if you wanted to wade through them all, it would take quite a bit of time. So maybe some repackaging of that information and a chronology of our work and the outcome might be helpful to the community as well. So that's just a quick update. President Albright, I'd be glad to answer any questions about these three topics I touched on or any others that are affecting the district at this time, and look forward to the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Board members, comments, questions? I had a question about the park test.
Yes.
And you had mentioned, one of the things you said was that we were working to mitigate as much stress as we can. I mean, I'm paraphrasing here. But I know that in the community, there are a lot of people who are concerned about that and how
Yeah.
much pressure kids are under. Have we done all that we can to make sure that kids are less stressful about everything that they're doing? And I'm thinking in particular at the high school level.
So,
And let me ask another question. Are schools, is there any ability for schools to handle things a little differently? Or is it like one uniform plan that we have for all of our high schools?
pretty tight protocol around the actual administration of the assessment, the amount of time, the nature of the setting, those things. How they get scheduled within the day, over the number of days, there are windows. They have to fit in that. So none. The schools are not exactly alike. So there is school-based flexibility because they have different kinds of equipment, different access. They can build their own. And there's some similarities in how the high schools did it and the elementaries did it. But yeah, they have school-based flexibility. Our assessment team from here, who know that protocol best, have been working with our building teams, and we have folks who have been trained at the school level. So, I mean, we've tried to create the right testing environment. I mean, obviously, we want students who take the test to take it seriously, and make a better use of their time and everybody's time, but certainly no efforts to create undue pressure or worry. Our interest is to create a positive, supportive testing and assessment environment. I think that this, Deirdre, Dr. Pilch and I met with Dr. Schaefer, some students a week or so ago, high school level students, and visited with them about that. They seemed pretty positive, pretty okay with where we were going with this. We did talk about how this is a pretty different test than they've taken before, so there could be some anxiety because it's going to look pretty different than the old TCAP and the assessments we took before. But until we do it the first time, I mean, we'll learn from that, as will the students. But yeah, I think, Lori, we're trying to create the right testing environment, so we're working at that. We just met with the principals today on that very topic.
I'm a little less worried about the testing environment for actually taking the test, but I am trying to think, and I've heard from some parents about just concerns about the stress level in high school in general. Everything that's going on and how much time, from teachers who are concerned about that they have a smaller amount of time
Yeah.
to teach their curriculum and make sure that kids do well at the end of the semester and AP, IP tests and so on. So
One of our concerns that we've expressed about
Yeah.
the impact on the instructional time, and as you know, we've shared all those documents with you
Right.
in the report we did in November. That's why we're advocating for a reduction in overall assessment
Yep.
at the state level, and we're working together with you on that. I'll give an update on that in the legislative report later, but we share that concern, but presently there isn't much we can do about it except just try to be supportive and find that balance and continue to work with our legislators.
yeah,
Yeah, thanks, though.
okay, thank you. Jenny?
So Sam, I don't want to steal your thunder. Were you going to say something about the radio program you're going to be on tomorrow or later this week? Okay, I will steal your thunder. So I understand, and you can correct me, that at some point later this week, you all are taping tomorrow. You and Dr. Messenger and Dr. Lori Shepard from the University of Colorado will be taping a program for KGNU tomorrow about assessments. And Lori Shepard is a great person to hear about that because she knows more about educational assessments than just about anybody anywhere, I think. So I hope you'll send us the link. And I'll look forward to hearing that. And I'll
We look forward to
hearing again what
that.
you have to
Thanks,
say.
Jenny. We look
Yeah.
forward to that.
Yeah.
Good for our community.
So,
We're not in board comments yet. This is superintendent.
no, I know I'm
Yeah.
talking,
Okay,
okay.
go ahead.
Yeah, I wasn't gonna comment. I was gonna, but
Go
if you
ahead.
don't want me to, I won't.
Please do.
I thought that was related to park. So
Okay.
anyway, I actually did have a question, which was about the, I don't understand, so there's a round 1 and a round 2 of park, and you don't have to give a whole presentation on the whole testing regimen, but what the heck is, I just don't understand what's going on.
So that's a notable difference in this new assessment for the park, not the CMAS, is that the idea being is that there's this interim assessment that occurs in March that's supposed to be like 75 to 80% of the way through the content. So let's just take third grade reading, say. The idea being is they're not to the end of the year, they're most of the way, and then there's a follow-up end of the year assessment, so say third grade reading. And so in the reading and mathematics, or English language arts and mathematics. That's what's different about this. The idea being that, well, when this is all working, which it won't be yet, that there would be more immediate results. So actually we would know the results in an early timeline, so that if there was modification in instruction, that the idea is that before the students finish the third grade reading, or whatever the area would be, there would be opportunity for appropriate interventions, so that when they do the end of the year test, in third grade reading as an example, then, well, one, hopefully we'd see growth, but also some of the work we did between March and May would have a positive impact. So that's what's really notably different, plus the nature of the test is different. But this interim assessment, and then what they call the end of the year assessment. So that's created some of the stress around this, because it just amplifies the amount of time to administer the test. But that's how it's designed, by design, to do just that.
I never quite understood that,
Yeah.
so thank you. And then I'd like to say I'm glad that the work is going forward on the bond. I'm still very excited about
Yeah,
that, and I
so are
think
we.
that's going to be a great thing for our community and our kids. And I also appreciate all the work that's going on to attempt to create a safe and healthy environment for our kids at Casey Middle School, because I know that's really our number one concern.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jane.
Thank you. Thanks. Anyone else? Okay, the next item on our agenda is public hearing and public participation. The board recognizes the value of public comment to issues related to the operation of the schools. To ensure that our meeting is conducted in an orderly manner, we ask that persons who address the board, 1, confine your comments to matters that are germane to the business of the school district. 2, limit your presentation to 2 minutes. If we go over the first hour, public comment will continue at the end of the meeting. 3, recognize that students often attend or view our meetings. Speakers' remarks, therefore, should be suitable for an audience that includes kindergarten through 12th grade students. The board president may interrupt, warn, or terminate a participant's statement that is unrelated to the business of the district or inappropriate for K-12 students. There is a lighting system on the podium. Starting at green when your 2 minutes start, turns yellow when you have 30 seconds remaining, and turns red at the end. When the light turns red, please wrap up your comments so that the board can hear from the maximum number of speakers. And today, we have a large number of speakers, 18 or 19 speakers here this evening. And so I will keep to the 2-minute time limit. However, if you have given your time, if there are 2 people here and you've given your time to one other person, you can have 4 minutes. And that's the case with our second speaker. But the first speaker this evening is Avery Tallman. So Avery, please join us at the podium, and we're glad you're here this evening, and welcome.
Thank you. Hello again. My name is Avery Tallman, and I'm a junior at Fairview High School. I first heard about the PARCC exams at the beginning of the semester when a few of my teachers told the class that they were concerned about covering all of the material in time for the AP and IB tests. While I realize the tests will take place during math in LA, all of my teachers are concerned about the decrease in instruction time. Many of them have made up for this lost time by assigning extra homework. As a junior, it's hard for me to understand why we're taking this test when we already are required to take the ACT at school, which covers both math and language arts. The timing of the test also is not ideal. I and many of my classmates will take the SAT on March 14th, which is immediately following 2 days of 95-minute PARCC exam testing hours. And then the April PARCC tests are mostly the weeks before the school ACT, and which, unlike the PARCC test, will end up on my transcript. And for me, as well as many other students, the IB and AP tests begin the week after the ACT. I would rather concentrate my efforts on the tests that matter for me in college. I hope that you guys will consider reducing or eliminating the PARCC tests, especially for juniors. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Peggy Kaufman, who will have 4 minutes given to her by Carol Diebel. And the person following Peggy is Liz Snowden.
Hello again.
Hi, welcome.
I wanted to follow up with the concerns that Avery has expressed over the PARCC exams. As parents, we understand the value and importance of standardized tests. My concern is how much class time the students are losing because of these exams. Due to lost teaching time, my children's teachers have been speeding up their lessons all year to try to cover material before the end of year tests. but they have said they can't get to everything. It is stressful for teachers and students. High school students don't care about park exams. They care about AP, IB, finals, transcripts, ACT, all those other things. And because all those other things go for college admission. Why are we taking so much class time away from the students to administer the park exams? The amount of testing proposed through park is excessive and above and beyond the federal testing requirements. We believe that the BVSD board shares this concern, given that item 3.1 of the 2015 BVSD legislative platform supports a reduction in the amount of time devoted to state mandated testing. Therefore, we would like you to consider the following. Request a waiver from park for all of BVSD. If not, grant BVSD high schools a waiver from these exams. If not, grant BVSD high schools a waiver from at least one round of these exams, either the March or the April exams, in order to increase instructional time. And there are only 3 weeks in between those two testing times. And if not, grant high school juniors a waiver from these exams, as the ACT that they are already required to take covers the same topic areas. Now, I understand there are some gray areas surrounding the waivers and whether they are worth applying for. But even if the Colorado Department of Education doesn't currently have the authority to grant the waivers, the legislature could grant them that authority, and wouldn't we want to have already filed one if we thought it was the right thing to do? And doesn't filing a waiver in and of itself make a statement to the legislature and others concerned about your position on these tests? 9 Colorado school districts have already requested waivers from one or both rounds of the testing. What is BVSD doing? In addition, the State Board of Education has thrown its support behind House Bill 15-1125, which would pull Colorado out of the Common Core state standards and the park testing group, reduce state assessments, and give districts more testing flexibility. Does it really make sense to put BVSD students through this testing when it might be repealed next year, and especially for the high school kids? Thank you.
Thank you. Liz Snowden, welcome. Thank you for coming.
My name is Liz Snowden, and I too am a Fairview High School parent and volunteer. And I support and agree with what Peggy Kaufman's said, requests for park waivers. In the event that BVSD is unable or unwilling to grant or obtain a waiver, we had several questions we wanted to ask. The first was, what should parents and students do to officially refuse to take the exams? Ideally without negative consequences to the students refusing. And again, your legislative platform would indicate you don't intend to penalize students who refuse. I know that an email came out late this afternoon from the high school discussing the tests, but it did not specify how to refuse the exams. Following up on that, parents and students want to know, if they refuse to take the exam, can this be done in a way to avoid any negative consequence to the school? I know there was some concern that refusal or participation rates might affect the school's rating in the state performance framework, although we're not sure exactly what that means or what those consequences are. Our main concern is maintaining as high as we can the level of instruction for our students. So one of the questions we have, is there a level of refusal at which instruction can actually take place? Is that 50% of students refusing, 75% of students refusing? Given that 97% of Fairview seniors refuse to take the CMAS exams in the fall, we anticipate that there might be a high level of refusal and would like it, if at all possible, to have instruction taking place. If a student does opt out of taking an exam, will they still be able to study another subject in the classroom? Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Gloria Yellowhorse, followed by Lucille Contreras. Welcome. We're glad you're here. Good evening.
Hi, good evening.
Hi.
Yeah, I came today because I Originally, I wanted to have a meeting with Mr. Messenger, and I've requested 2 meetings with him, one in October and one now in January. And each one, he referred me one to Mr. Ron Yahtzee, and I didn't need to speak with Mr. Ron Yahtzee. I needed to speak with Mr. Messenger. And I just, this is about my son, my grandson, who went to High Peaks Middle School. And the reason I wanted to meet with him is that Devin is in 2nd grade. He is 7 years old, and just this year, he's had some problems within the school district around some kind of anxiety, which was getting worse. This year, it's gotten really a lot worse. He has been held. I had a IEP, and I found out he was held in a special ed room for 1 hour to 3 hours, crying, throwing things, banging his head. These things he never did at home, and I don't understand why they would hold him to this extreme when they told me when I would leave that it was 15 minutes at the most that he would cry. And so when I got this report, I was just blown away, and I didn't know what to do. We decided that he would stay 2 hours of instruction for math and reading at High Peaks in the morning with the special ed teacher, and by 2015, in 1 year, we would try to work for him to get into the classroom because that's where his anxiety was, the classroom. I don't know what happened. I haven't had a chance to get him diagnosed with anything. I went to the physical doctor, and I explained to the physical doctor what was going on, and I needed some help with his anxiety because he was having severe anxiety. And I explained to her what was going on, and she said, why would they take him to the classroom? Excuse me. Well, they explained, why would they take Devin to the classroom? What is it about the classroom that they continue wanting him to go to? So then,
So,
so I, go ahead.
thank you for talking about this. Ms. Contreras,
Hi, my name is
you're here
Lucille
together?
Contreras.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and I'm here to support my sister here,
Okay.
Gloria, and I'm also concerned about my nephew, and so I'd like to pass my time over to
okay,
Gloria.
fine, thank you. Please continue.
Okay, and so when we had our 2 hours I assumed and trusted the school they could keep him for 2 hours with instruction without having to force him to the class. The physical doctor couldn't understand that. She said, I just can't believe they would do that to a child. Why are they trying to do this to him? And I said, I don't know. I don't know. So she wrote a letter saying, I don't want him in the classroom. Well, that letter was dismissed. I got a letter in January from a psychologist. I'm trying to have him assessed right now. We don't know if he has sensory. We don't know, this anxiety just really came up. And I asked them, Mrs. Brenner, Michelle Brenner was in the meeting, and I've asked them, I need time. I don't, even in the psychologist letter, we needed time to have him assessed. And they just disregarded the doctor's letters. I don't know if that's legal or if it's okay that our doctors, Devin's medical doctor and psychologist has no authority in Devin's health and development. So I took him out of school. I had no choice. I felt his safety was at harm right now because of his anxiety level, and they just kept pushing him into the classroom, and no matter what the doctor said. So I took him out, and now I don't know what I'm going to do, because I haven't even had a chance to meet with Mr. Messenger. I haven't had a chance to discuss what's going to happen with Devin right now.
Okay.
And I do want a meeting with him. I have other problems in this school district with teachers. Just last week in Broomfield, I have 8 grandchildren in this school, so there's several other issues. Last week, one teacher confronted my other granddaughter at Broomfield High School and told her some awful things that he needs to be accountable for. And I will be glad to meet with I would like for one school board member and Mr. Messenger to meet with me, is what I would.
Ms. Yellowhorse, thank you for
Yes.
your comments this evening. Because it's a personal question that you're talking about, I'm going to jump around protocol and ask Dr. Messenger, will you be able to meet with Ms. Yellowhorse?
I reached out to her yesterday and again today. We're trying to arrange it.
Okay. Thank you. So if you
And
will.
will someone else be willing to meet also.
Okay, good. We'll have
Well,
people there.
that's not the only services I'm talking about here. This is what I'm trying to get at.
Okay. We'll have good people there to meet with you.
Okay.
With
and,
with
I'd
Dr.
like to know
Messenger.
ahead of time who they are,
And-
and I will also have.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for advocating for your grandson. Thank you. Our next speaker is Katie Walker, followed by Dylan Walker. Welcome. Thank you. You can come together. Absolutely. We're glad you're here. Thank you.
Let's see. Can you reach that? Okay. It is my understanding that members of BVSD, including those in the highest positions, may have been denying parents, students, teachers, and faculty members of Casey Middle School the right to full transparency and disclosure around the very present and possibly very dangerous levels of toxic gases known as hydrogen sulfide, or H2S, being emitted into the air at Casey. According to the Agency of Toxic Substances and Disease Registry, 0.11 to 0.33 parts per billion is a safe and ambient level of H2S in areas such as schools. There is quite a bit of evidence that shows the gases recorded at Casey are consistently much higher than this, sometimes reaching 200 times higher than what is considered to be safe. The so-called safe levels, which BVSD is reporting, are based on industrial levels and not indoors where children are located. In 2011, Dr. Orant was brought in by the district and disclosed that even at low levels, H2S can be dangerous and make people sick. This information is quite conflicting with the continuing reports from Superintendent Messenger. In the short time we have been at Casey, we have received a couple of emails from the superintendent denying any dangers associated with the air quality concerns. Not only that, but many families at Casey are completely unaware of this ongoing problem because many of them do not have access to email and many do not speak English and are not being given any type of translation around this concern. To me, this is a major breach of full transparency within the Casey community.
It has been reported that almost 24 teachers and kids have expressed feelings sick with an array of symptoms associated with H2S toxicity, which include mouth lesions, irritations and burning of the eyes, nosebleeds, lightheadedness and fainting, an overall flu-like feeling, fatigue, headaches, and blurry vision and difficulty breathing have been all reported. Teachers and kids have left Casey permanently and are continuing to leave because of this problem. Most of the teachers are afraid to come forward, however, because they're afraid of jeopardizing their jobs.
This investigation has been going on for upwards of 5 years now. That is 5 years too long. 5 years of faculty and students being exposed to dangerously high levels of toxic gases. That is not okay with me. This is an unprecedented problem. It is basically a science experiment, in my opinion. There has never been a long-standing study done on the effects of high exposure of H2S on children, and I do not feel comfortable with my own child being used as a guinea pig.
The ongoing investigating work clearly shows something is happening at Casey. Classes are being moved to different areas of the school. Why are classes being moved? The problem is being completely downplayed, and the parents deserve better transparency around this matter.
Casey Middle School is recognized nationwide for its state-of-the-art green-built construction. In a town such as Boulder that stands for uplifting the health and well-being of its community and the environment, the toxic levels at Casey
You can finish your sentence.
are far from exemplary and must be fixed now. Not in 1 year, not in 5 years, but now. Is that the 4 minutes?
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
It is. Thank you for coming. Thank you, Dylan, for coming. Our next speaker is Sophie Rubin, followed by Alan Feinberg. Hi, welcome.
Hi. My name is Sophie, and I am a student at Casey Middle School. I am in 7th grade, and I have gone to this school for 1.5 years. I came here to tell the school board about what is really happening at my school. Thank you for letting me speak here. I have had symptoms since I started going to Casey. I've recently realized that they are connected to the bad days at the school. 2 of my friends have had symptoms similar to mine. Just some of these symptoms are constant headaches, dizziness, and nausea. However, there are more symptoms other students have as well. One of my friends has developed asthma since starting at Casey. That is very scary, and I am very worried that some of my best friends will get even more sick from the gases. Some days, the gases is very bad, and many people get very sick. I wonder why the letters from the superintendent don't tell the truth about all the children and teachers who are sick. Last Friday was a very bad day, and over the weekend I decided that I can't go to the school anymore. Today we requested an emergency transfer to another school. I am very sad because leaving my friends, but I am even more upset about my friends who don't understand why they keep getting sick. Please take urgent action to save my friends and all the students and teachers at Casey Middle School. Thank you.
Thank you, Sophie, for coming and talking about what's happened. Thank you for being here. Our next speaker is Alan Feinberg. Alan, welcome.
Well, that's hard to follow. I wanted to talk to you about Casey also. And I don't have children or grandchildren at Casey. I did go to Casey many years ago. But I got involved in this because a company that I am participating in is working on treatment protocols for exposure to heavy metals, radionuclides, and toxic chemicals, and how to rid bodies of those substances. And we were contacted with some concern from parents saying, do you think there's anything you can do to help us? And after listening to, similarly to what you've been listening to, I was extremely concerned. I'm really concerned. For over 4 years, Casey Middle School students have been exposed to this toxic gas. It's a highly regulated toxic chemical in industrial settings, and acute exposure has well-known outcomes, including dying. There's less knowledge of the chronic, sort of low-level exposures for adults, and very, very little is known about the exposure for children. But there is no known real safe level for children, long-level chronic exposure. And for that reason, I think it's the school board needs to treat this as an urgent matter rather than as a sort of a nuisance odor that needs to be taken care of. I'd recommend, I guess, after thinking about this, that you might consider some of the following, doing the following things. That you reassure the parents that you're taking this very seriously and it's an urgent matter that you want to resolve. That you establish 24-hour, 7-day-a-week kind of air sampling with very sensitive equipment to find out exactly what is going on in that school and where it's happening. Create a working group, which you're talking about, that has broad representation. Use independent third-party expertise to develop a plan of action, and test these students for the contaminants that they may have been taken in while going to school, and find out what your baseline situation is. Thanks very much, and thanks for being interested in taking care of this problem.
Thank you. Thank you for coming to speak. Our next speaker is Paul Schmidt. Paul, welcome.
My name is Paul Schmidt. I've worked in industry and in a number of interagency investigative teams here in the state of Colorado. I'm here as a public citizen. I have a background working in workers' comp in the defense industry, and these chemicals are in fact hazardous material chemicals. There's a high-risk situation here that, from a standpoint of appreciating your circumstances as the board and the public circumstances, the testing that I've seen so far as a volunteer, I'm not on payroll, but I do know there's about 10 suits in the room here besides the board. I've worked on multi-million-dollar exposure cases. This is a very serious situation. The testing that I've seen as a volunteer has only occurred on a single floor. Hydrogen sulfide, methane, and the other gases that can exist in this kind of LEED-certified building have different specific gravities, and they float. Volatile organic chemicals go to the top of the building. The heavier gases like CO2 go to the bottom. Every single floor has to be tested. 24/7 testing has to occur. I would suggest to you, from a financial standpoint, that's a $36 million rebuild, if I understand, that the risk management issues of thiosulfate levels, I have a HIPAA-compliant current lab test on one of the patients, is 1,464 for thiosulfate. That's in a girl who is suffering 2-week menstrual cycles. I have another measured level here, a legally reliable measure of 1,233 at a different time. So realizing that I have a yellow light in a limited amount of time, I think this is not a simple circumstance. I think you have an underground passive geothermal system that probably wasn't piped appropriately that may allow the leaking of chemicals into the building, including benzene. The open mouth sores that are explained in a number of the patients are likely sourced with various solvents. And I suggest strongly there's a further review of these serious issues. Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming to speak to the board. Our next speaker is Heather Ryan. Heather, welcome. Thank you for coming.
And I'm here and endorse some of the earlier comments. I speak today to ask the board to exercise some active and independent governance on this issue of sewer gas at Casey. My name is Heather Ryan. I practiced law in Boulder for 20 years. I've lived in the Whittier neighborhood forever, and I have several friends who have children at Casey Middle School who are suffering ongoing adverse symptoms and who are extremely frustrated with the way the problem is being minimized and the failure to solve the problem. We know that there's an obvious problem, an issue with sewer gas at Casey that's been going on since the remodel occurred. Management to date has been unwilling to acknowledge that there is a health problem associated with this, or even a potential health problem among students. The position of management seems to be that sewer gas is a mere nuisance, with only temporary symptoms experienced by a small group of ultra-sensitive individuals, and that temporary problems of nausea, headaches, and breathing difficulties can be dismissed by the school district. Well, we can hope that this is true. As others have said, there is inadequate medical research to support this conclusion. There are no studies of the effects of long-term exposure of school-aged children and adult staff to sewer gas. My plea to you is that you become involved individually and as a board in evaluating whether management is wrong or even reckless in dismissing the risks and continuing to expose the children of Casey to sewer gas. I suggest the following actions be considered. 1, direct management to timely warn parents enrolling or contemplating enrolling. 2, direct management to actively seek information from all staff, students, and parents about symptoms, absences, and accommodations related to the gas. And 3, discuss with your legal counsel the implications of relying on management assertions based on limited scientific evidence that children and staff are not being harmed by the sewer gas. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Zoe Kirkhouse. If I said your name, pronounce it correctly.
Zoe Kirkhouse.
Zoe, welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you. I am a parent at Casey Middle School. I have a daughter in 7th grade. I also have a daughter in 10th grade who went all the way through Casey and was in fact part of the first class that was completely in the new building. And of course, I'm here also to discuss the presence of hydrogen sulfide gas at Casey. I'm going to set aside the incredible anger and frustration I have with the BVSD administration about how this situation has been handled, and instead present you with a couple of key facts. In October, hydrogen sulfide monitors in Casey recorded the presence of the gas at 500 parts per billion. Several times this measurement occurred in October. As a comparison, the state of Kentucky has a standard where hydrogen sulfide exposure should not exceed 10 parts per billion for a continuous period of 1 hour. So in response to this huge level, were students evacuated, were they moved to different parts of the building, were parents notified? No, none of that happened. None of that happened. So yes, folks, Kentucky does better at standards to protect our children than the Boulder Valley School District. The fact that Colorado does not regulate this gas, even though many other states do, does not mean that it is safe. Kids are getting sick. Teachers are getting sick. We know this. It's been reported. You've heard some of the symptoms: headaches, dizziness, nausea, vomiting. Parents I've heard of have said that when they take their kids to the doctor and they talk with them about what their symptoms are and the fact they go to Casey, the nurses know. The doctors know. They know what the symptoms are. They know what's causing it. And still nothing has been done at the district level. They say the first step to recovery is admitting you have a problem. Dr. Messenger has repeatedly denied we have a problem, defining the issue as one of odor and fine-tuning the air quality at Casey. But we do have a problem. Kids are getting sick. Teachers are getting sick. It's time to admit we have a problem and do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you for coming. The next speaker is Luana Rubin, who I believe has been given an additional 2 minutes by Caroline Johnson. Is that right? Yep, great, thanks. Welcome, Luana, thank you.
Thank you, members of the board. I'm a Casey parent as well. That was my daughter who spoke earlier, who was quite emotional.
Yeah.
Children and teachers at Casey Middle School are getting sick, but they are confused because the letters that are being sent out by the superintendent's office continue to indicate that gas levels are safe and the problem is being fixed. Last Friday, I went to the school to pick up my daughter. I was hit with a wall of heavy, gassy fumes. This was not subtle. Within 5 minutes, my eyes, nose, mouth, and throat were burning. I felt like I couldn't breathe. I think if you know anything about this, you know that when you're exposed to this constantly, you lose your sense of smell and you lose your taste. There are many teachers who've been in there 4 years who have reported losing their sense of taste, for instance, and nobody can smell it if they're in there all the time. So I think we've heard a lot about the symptoms. I won't repeat all of those, but a feeling of being smothered or breathless is one of them that we have heard from other parents and children. We know that many children have gone to the hospital, ranging from the emergency room to Children's Hospital in Denver, with symptoms that point to toxic exposure. One mother called me today. I'm here representing the CCAAL group. One mother called me. She wanted to be here. Evidently, she's not here. And she said she was crying. And she said, "Thank God for this information, because I keep saying there's something wrong and nobody's responding. My son is missing all of this time. He's been to Children's Hospital. Now she's been reported to social services for being a bad mother because he's missed so much time at school." I'm sorry she couldn't be here tonight, but I'm sure you'll hear from her. The letters point to a more sensitive meter that's being used, but it only goes down to 10 parts per billion. Safe levels are 0.1 to 0.3 billion, and we have indicated that information and the source in the letter that was sent to the board on February 4th. The H2S levels measured in the building by the district are 10 to 200 times the safe level for children. Our parent group at Casey is demanding that urgent action be taken by the board to remove the children from this toxic environment until the problem is identified and fixed and confirmed by a third-party environmental auditor, preferably someone from our community who is available for us to interact with and give the truth about what's happening. We demand that this action be taken to protect the children within 2 weeks. We also demand transparent communications with parents from the district which shall include informing the parents of the dangerous levels of exposure to H2S, surveying parents to see if there are symptoms, illness, acute or chronic conditions that point to exposure. The district must pay for monthly testing by a nationally certified lab that specializes in identifying toxic exposure to children, i.e. not a cheap lab and a lab with no specific experience in this field. Urine and blood testing must be offered right now to provide a baseline. Remove all students from the building immediately to avoid future health issues. Communication to all parents, including Spanish, and also hard copies for those who don't have internet. New meters must be installed on all 3 floors to run continuously, and they must be sensitive down to 0 and 0.1 parts per billion to accurately test safe levels for children. The school is slowly being evacuated by the families who have transferred their children to other schools due to health issues. Are you aware of this? Also, teachers have left due to health reasons and have been warned not to discuss the facts with parents. So tonight, I have health records. I have my daughter's health records. I have another parent's record she brought tonight for her child, and I have a teacher's. I would like to share those with you. I can't share them publicly, but I wonder if there's a way that I can share them with you privately.
You sure can. You could give
Okay.
them to Sandy, our secretary, Sandy Eicher, right? And we'd be happy to look at them. Thank you.
So you won't discuss this now? You won't look at them now?
No,
No?
no. No, we're not, we have a limited amount of time for public participation, and I think you're at your 4 minutes, but we'd be happy to look at them and see the information.
Okay, some of the copies were just handed me tonight, and because of HIPAA regulations, I can't hand them over without the names being blacked out, so we'll have to follow up with copies to you where the names have been removed.
You can give them tomorrow, that'd be fine.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you for coming. Our next speaker is Kathy Wilcox. Kathy, welcome.
Thank you for hearing us.
Mhm.
I don't understand why the school is still open. Don't spend any money on monitors. Close it, fix it. It's not rocket surgery. How long has this been going on? Right? I mean, it's our children. These are our children. They have so many symptoms. There's so many people that are just leaving. There's so many people that have left teacher-wise that I've spoke to that have said, yeah, once I left, I felt like $1 million. I felt like a new person.
Wow.
You know, it takes 2 weeks for this stuff to come out of your system. You know, and my assessment, speaking of assessments, is an F for Casey. $35 million down the methane drain, right? People are smelling these fumes, getting physically nauseous and having physical reactions immediately. What's going to happen over a long term? Are y'all prepared for 200, 300 kids having thyroid cancer? Are you prepared for the lawsuits that that's going to create? I mean, if we're talking greed and money, let's get down to it. You know, I'm calling for the school to be closed, and I'm looking for a lawyer to seek an injunction if that's what it takes. I don't have a thyroid, okay? I was working in a nuclear power plant when I was 18, which was, you know, thyroid cancer is considered exposure as a child. At 18, I was still a child. These kids are far younger. There were a lot of, you know, studies and stuff about this with the radiation because of fallout and things of that nature. We have 0 studies about this. We don't know what's going to happen with all of the fumes over a long length of time. And again, I ask you, is that something you're willing to do to these children? These are our children. These are our future. We've spent $35 million trying to teach them well, and now we're teaching them that their symptoms and their problems don't matter, you know, and their health. So even if there's the smallest chance that you're putting these kids in danger, you need to change it immediately. Their organs and bodies are just growing. We don't know the long-range effects, and we don't want our kids to be guinea pigs. I'm moving my kid from the school because of it, but I'm not going without telling you guys, as a lot of people have, including teachers, workers in the cafeteria that I've spoke to. A lot of people have had health issues. You need to take this seriously today.
Thank you
It's
for coming.
unconscionable.
Our next speaker is Lynn Hill. Lynn, welcome.
Hello, thank you.
Good evening.
I'm also a parent. My son is in 6th grade at Casey Middle School, and he's had a lot of absences, including last Friday. He complained of a stomach ache, and he has headaches often. And when I mentioned today about, do you ever notice your eyes? He said, oh yeah, that's why my eyes are dry. And I didn't really think that this was a huge problem because I read the letters that I was getting from Bruce Messenger, and it seemed like everything was getting checked out and it wasn't a big problem. It was just an odor, which I didn't smell until the other day. And I went into the girls' restroom, and it didn't smell like sewer, it smelled like chemical. And so I'm really concerned that it's not just a sewer problem, it's actually toxic gases that are coming from the boreholes, the 57 boreholes deep in the ground. Maybe they weren't sealed, maybe that air is coming up. I think it's a huge problem that can't be dismissed or handled quickly. And I think it definitely is urgent. And my son has sensitive lungs, and he has a lot of issues in his family. This is not the environment that he needs to be in. So I urge you to do something about it immediately and not just, a few monitors here and there. Get real experts. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn. Our next speaker is it Ruhama Andrews?
Yes, that's me.
Okay, great. Hi, thank you. Welcome.
My son is in the 8th grade at Casey Middle School. He has been extremely sick. I've had him at Children's Hospital. In fact, thank you. I have got numerous, at least 53, 54 doctor's notes from both his family doctor here in Boulder and the University of Colorado in Denver, and as well as Children's Hospital. Like the woman just said, I was getting the notes thinking that the problem was being taken care of. Obviously, it's not. My son has every symptom that has been mentioned. In fact, he has such chronic stomach issues that he's been put on 5 different medications because of this. 5 medications on a 14-year-old. Actually, it started when he was 12, 13. And I'm enraged. I am so angry. I cry constantly. I've had, in fact, there was some teachers that got together. I don't know their names, of course, but they said, Logan's absences there's something else going on. There's an underlying issue. And we believe that it might just be his mother. They deemed me unfit. An unfit mother. I've never, ever had anyone say that to me. My son was born with numerous birth defects as it was. And I have actually had child protection come to my house and threaten me. I mean, I don't know what it's going to take. I don't know what's going on. I'm so lost and I'm so sad. And my son is being made to feel like, his symptoms are all in his head. He just doesn't want to come to school. And I just don't want to send him. We're lazy or blah, 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 priorities. It's not that. He is very, very ill. And I don't know where to turn to anymore. So, yeah, that's why I'm here.
Excuse me. Thank you for coming to tell us about your son and your thoughts.
Oh, and we're also getting threatened with truancy court. Yeah, that's the next step. So I'm going to be involved with the court system now because my son is sick.
Okay. Thank you for coming this evening. Our next speaker is Barry Eakins. Barry, welcome.
Well, thank you for listening to all the speakers ahead of me. What I have to say seems pretty trivial after what I've heard. But I'll go ahead and speak what I was here about. It's a very different subject. So this evening, right before this meeting started, there was an NPR story on Marketplace about testing and profit. And in particular, this is an interview with a woman, Stephanie Simon, who wrote an article, in-depth article for Politico on a British company, Pearson, that dominates the U.S. testing market. You may be familiar with Pearson. And this was just a kind of an interview. Her article really looked at how much influence this company has with K-12 testing, college testing, and really implied that they amass a tremendous amount of student data here in the U.S. And so for me, I find this a little disturbing to think that our children are viewed as money generators for profit via testing. But I invite you to listen to the NPR Marketplace story and then maybe dig into the political story by Stephanie Simon. It's particularly called No Profit Left Behind was the name of that article. And so I invite you to listen and dig into that a little more fully. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments on funding about testing. It's something that concerns us all, as do the other topics that we talked about. The next item on our agenda is board communication. Board members, any comments or? I think we took a lot of notes, heard a lot of concern from a lot of parents. Thank you for coming, and students especially. Thank you for coming, Dylan, Sophie. I think we heard from Dr. Messenger at the beginning of the meeting about what we're doing with Casey, what the plans are in terms of better monitoring, bringing in outside experts. I think one of the comments that we heard was about wanting to have ongoing monitoring and in both a company from inside our area, Boulder, Denver, and somebody from outside. I don't know, maybe it would help Bruce to comment a little bit on the testing that you're doing and where we are with Casey, in light of our comments.
I would just say that we continue to monitor the air quality. Part of our work is working with a third party that has their, that runs the test through a laboratory setting and the calibration of the machines. We can certainly follow up to see if there's a more sophisticated analysis that's required. Again, we're relying on those whose work is in this area of air quality and sampling, so we certainly can follow up on that. We are reliant on both local experts as well as those outside of our state, and trying to look at, where they have agreement, and also in public buildings. So we'll continue that work. I've sent a note to our school lead nurse to follow up on each of the parent testimonies this evening with the families to see what information, that's information I've not received before. So I will have our lead nurse follow up on that and gather that information so I can review it. So we will continue to reach out to staff and families as those information is brought forward to us. Again, we believe, according to the testing we've done, the air quality is at a safe level, but obviously there is parent concern, and we'll follow up with that.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. Oh, yeah, board comments.
Oh, I was going to comment on something different.
Jenny.
Oh, I guess I can comment on something different anyway. Besides just thanking parents that came out tonight and reassuring parents that student safety is really important to us, and I have real confidence in our staff and the work they've been doing, but we will keep asking questions and so we'll keep asking questions, which I'm sure Bruce can assure you we've been doing. So there were some people here, I don't see them anymore, that had questions about park. And so I'm hoping, but I think they sent us emails. I'm hoping we can follow up with answers to some of their questions about opting kids out, and what are the consequences to the school, and that kind of thing.
I
So-
can answer that for you right now.
Okay, yes,
Fine.
thank you.
So there is no, if parents notify the school in advance of their absence that they do not choose to take that, they'll refuse to take the assessment, that'll be an excused absence, just like any other prior notification, so it would be an excused absence, and the parent would assume the responsibility of the supervision of their child if they're not in school, which we would assume. And so there'll be no consequence for the child. They just need to, we just ask that they let us know in advance, and we have a letter we'll provide to the parents if they inquire about that. So we're prepared to do that. And we don't yet know the consequences for the schools if they don't have a participation level of 95%. The best information we have in meeting with the commissioner is, at least previously, if a school or a school district is below that participation level, then it will impact their accreditation standing. So we run that possibility either by school or by district, that if we have a lower than that 95% participation rate, that it could affect their accreditation ratings. I mean, all that is subject to change by the legislature and the State Board of Education as we go forward, but that's what we know to be the case presently.
Are we worried about federal funding?
There is communication coming from the U.S. Department of Education to the state of Colorado that if our participation rate doesn't meet that standard, they'd consider withholding all federal funding from the state. That has a conversation that's been communicated to the State Department, as it has in Illinois, because Chicago is very much in the middle of this, and probably other states as well. Those are just the two I know of. So I don't think that's for sure, but that has been the conversation, that the federal government expects us to administer the test. It's a part of our agreement with the U.S. Department of Education, and so one of the consequences is they would withhold federal funding, and that would be significant for our district and districts throughout the state. So again, that's probably just conversation at this point, I would say, Jenny. But that's about all we know with regard to that at this time.
And I'm assuming we're not going to offer alternate instruction for kids.
We are not going to order alternate instruction for students. If they come to school and need to be supervised, we will supervise them. We're not going to put a 6-year-old back out on the street corner or a 9-year-old. But yeah, we will not provide alternative activities or instruction during the time of the assessment. If we're doing tests, we're doing the tests. Yeah.
And then I'd just like to mention to the board something that I attended, the History Day at Broomfield Heights Middle School. I had an opportunity to judge, and it was way great. And I see that we've all been invited to Southern Hills and Southern Hills History Day, so I'm going to recommend that if you have a chance to stop by, it's a very awesome thing that the kids are doing. It just gives kids an opportunity to exercise critical thinking skills and to work on a long-term project. So it's kind of amazing. And then I also know that the district is looking for judges for their for the district-wide History Day. So I'm not suggesting that board members do that, but if you happen to know people that are interested, you might pass the word along, because I think it's kind of a fun thing to do, and it's just a morning, March 7th in the morning. So anyway, that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jenny.
Jenny. Tom?
Wow. I don't know what to say. First, before I talk about Casey, to the lady, I don't see her here, Gloria, that came forward about her grandson. We do have a public complaint policy, KE-R, and I hope you'll communicate that to her, where any issues can go up through schools, assistant superintendents, directors, superintendents, and then to the Board of Education.
We have in fact communicated that.
Okay, so I would encourage her, if she's not happy with your meeting, that she would then follow that and come to the Board of
There's
Education.
several steps before it gets to me.
Right.
That's part of what we're
Right. I've been on the board for 6 years, and was here during the construction of Casey and all the good things and the pride we had in that building and that student and those students. From the beginning, there were concerns about odors, and I was aware of those, aware that, the school district was trying to address those odors, understand what they were. There were repairs made, I know, to sewer drains, work on the air handling system, and a number of things. But I wasn't aware that people were getting sick. at least not until recently. We received a email from some of the parent groups here talking about the levels and sickness. I quite honestly wasn't aware it was to that level. And, I thank you all for coming and speaking to the Board of Education tonight. This is very disturbing to me. And, again, you're coming forward and telling me stories of your children and children that you know. And we can't take that lightly. I don't take lightly our children or safety. There may be disagreements that we have on what levels should be, but there's obviously some concerns here and problems, warning concerns. Kids and staff are getting sick. We received an email just a couple of hours ago from teachers at Casey, basically saying what you're saying with some of the symptoms. I think that we need to address this. You're saying that we need to address this urgently, and I agree with you. And you're demanding that we address this, and I agree with you. I think that maybe we need to get this all out on the table. Go through everything that's happened in a very public manner, understand what issues were, what the timeline is, what the history is, what has been done, what's been successful, what's not being done, and then what are the plans moving forward. And if it really looks like we've got a very serious problem, which you believe there is, then I'm certainly not against closing Casey till we fix it. And the health of our students is our primary concern. Even if it's just sewer gas odors, that's certainly distracting to the learning environment. And it sounds like it's a lot more serious than that. Lori, if I may, I would like to move that we have a special meeting of the Board of Education to address the issues at Casey. That's so.
Who seconded that? Shelley?
So can we discuss this now a little bit more?
So what do you have in mind?
So,
I mean, I heard what your topics are.
yeah,
What-
so-
I
so
mean, like,
that's
we have a meeting scheduled in a week. I mean,
what-
can we just include this in a discussion as a discussion item, or?
No, I
Do you
would
want
like,
one on
I would like a
Thursday or
special
something, or?
meeting that just addresses this alone. And the purpose would be then to go through this whole history, timeline, events, actions, results, and hear from other concerned individuals what the air quality concerns are at Casey. And I would like this to happen soon. We need to do this soon. We've heard this. I would propose that it be a special meeting we could set up for next week or whenever soon after that if Dr. Shaughnessy can be available. But if he can't be available soon, I think we need to address this right away. I don't think every day is a potential problem. We have a work session scheduled next Tuesday from I believe 5 till 7. And we could meet on a special meeting right after that. And have the public come in and ask the superintendent and staff, bring in consultants as necessary, and so that we talk about what's been done, what the issues are, and because I think there's a lot of miscommunication and perceptions out there, and I want to make sure that we get everything on the table. I would say we would talk about the history of the quality concerns, a timeline of events, complaints, district actions for those complaints, results, were they successful, not successful, have formal presentations as from our consultants that have done the work, present and discuss any potential actions. I would ask for staff to bring forth a plan of what the next steps are. And then potentially board action in directing the district to address these concerns in what manner we feel is appropriate and warranted at the time.
And what day were you thinking for this?
Well, I was thinking next Tuesday. We need to do it soon.
Do we have a meeting scheduled next Tuesday?
We do have a work session. And I was just looking at the calendar here.
So I wonder if that gives enough time for, all the information. I think we need to follow up on, we've heard some issues, and I think it's important for staff to have a chance to investigate, what
Absolutely.
what the reality
I
is.
agree. We
I don't
want to
know
do it
that-
soon. And I would be happy to entertain, some dates around that, but I don't want to wait a month,
So President Albright, if I could ask.
Bruce, please.
Why don't you let me do some legwork on the amount of time it will take to compile the information Tom's asked for, if the board is supportive, and also the availability of our consultants, because, we obviously look at their schedule as well, so.
Okay.
Anyway, because I heard Tom ask that we would have them present to participate in the meeting, and I need to see if they're available, and they may or may not be available in that shorter time notice, so. But
So
we could work on that.
if I could, I'll, certainly that's reasonable. I'll amend the motion to say within 2 weeks, because I think we need to address it within 2 weeks. I just thought that Tuesday would be a good time, since we're here anyway, have a work session anyway, and at 7 o'clock would be convenient for people to come from the community that have children and otherwise, to address this. So that's the motion.
Can I just ask a question, Tom? I believe we're planning a community meeting at Casey with Dr. Shaughnessy and the other experts, and I'm planning to be there, and I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, are. Could we somehow combine this meeting with that?
That would be fine as long as we have a formal board meeting, because I want to have the ability to take action as a board. And unless we have a formal board meeting, we can't take action. We can't just attend the meeting as a communication meeting or as a community meeting, then take action. We have to have, give notice to the public ahead of time that we're going to have a formal board meeting. And that's the only way that we can take action as a board, is in a formal board meeting. And, our policies allow, special board meetings to do this.
So I'll do some homework and communicate with you, President Albright.
Great,
See what we
okay.
can put together. If that's the pleasure of the board, you need to vote on it.
Okay. Jim?
So to kind of follow up on Sam's concern, and certainly what I've heard, I would like very much to have a meeting like that with the consultants and the experts, and be able to hear what they're saying. I don't know that the best public policy is made directly that day after hearing from an expert. I'm sure we're going to have a report that we're going to be able to read beforehand on the building. I guess, so I would be supportive of a meeting. I'm not necessarily supportive of making it within 2 weeks. I'd like to give our consultants opportunity to be at the meeting, and experts to be at the meeting, and the community to plan ahead for the meeting. So that would be my input back.
So anyone else? Tina or Shelley? Or anyone? Tina?
I don't have a strong opinion on when the meeting is, but one thing I really heard tonight was the district is lacking a sense of urgency around this issue, and I want to make sure that the actions we take reflect a sense of urgency that meets a really strong concern about the health of a child. And I think we need to reflect that in whatever we decide to do.
Shelley?
How absolutely critical do you think it is that we have the latest consultants at that meeting? Do you think we could cover a lot of what we need to cover without that, so that we didn't have to wait for that person? Or do you think it's critical that that person be there?
Tom, please.
I think there's enough to talk about the history and the timeline and the actions, just so that everybody's on the same page. And perhaps then Bruce and staff will have a recommendation we can consider. Just because we have a meeting doesn't mean we have to take action. We could take action by saying we want a follow-up meeting, or we direct superintendent staff to do these particular things and bring that back to us. I just don't want to push that off. We don't have to, if we don't think we're prepared then, to make actions, and then we shouldn't. We shouldn't do it prematurely. But I just think the urgency is such that we've got to, there's a lot of perception out there, and misunderstanding. It'll just get worse and worse. And I think we just need to direct this head on, and for everyone to know that this board is concerned with the health of our children.
Jenny, or no? Are you you're still thinking? I agree about a sense of urgency. However, I also am concerned about a sense of accuracy and making sure that we have all the information. We've got Dr. Shaughnessy coming here in 2 weeks, or hopefully within 2 or 3 weeks. And I just think it's really important for us to have all of the information, have time to follow up with some of the comments that we heard tonight. I just think it's important to investigate and find out what medical issues, if there are, as they've been reported. I just think it's important to find out and dig in a little bit deeper before we jump to conclusions or to action. The other thing is action takes 2 meetings, before action. We certainly can ask our staff to investigate things, but, I don't know what action might be.
Yeah, I'm not sure I agree with you on that, and I think we ought to have, our attorneys look into that, that we can't take action on things like this that are urgent. However, just because we have one meeting doesn't mean we can't have another one.
No, that's true.
If we feel that we
schedule
need
new
more
ones.
information.
You bet.
Again, the primary purpose is to get everything on the table, understand the timelines, make sure this board is aware of everything that's happened, and hear from our community on what's going on. And we can decide to take action, and the action may be go get more information and get back to us in a week or whatever it might be.
Okay.
So, I'm sort of thinking that there's something that we can, we've heard things that need to happen tonight. I'm assuming that some of the information that we've heard tonight may be, especially medical records and things that haven't been, that I understand our staff has not seen before, have just been produced, and I'm assuming that people who came and said they would produce medical records for us will, and letters from their doctors and such, will in fact do that, and that gives us something to follow up on right now. And I'm inclined to agree with Lori that as a board, our best course of action is to make sure that when we do meet, we're well informed and that we have the relevant information we need. And I would really like the expert that we've brought in from Tulsa, who I think is to be there if possible, and possibly if we've got the local medical people and they can come.
We'll bring the health department in, all the people who have been involved. That'd
Yes.
be great.
Yeah, so I think that it's important that the meeting we have those people there, because I think that otherwise we're just talking to hear ourselves talk, and I don't see any reason to have a special meeting to do that, so.
Tina?
And just one other suggestion for whichever meeting we have. I think it might be good at this point to involve someone from the Casey community to make sure that this meeting has an agenda and the type of information that the community is looking for. We've been giving lots of information to the Casey community, but it apparently isn't what is working to make the community believe that this is working, and the experience isn't aligned with what we're sending out. So I would like to not go to a meeting where I hear, where there's the same information, because we know the community's seen this information. It's clear that this community is reading these reports and understands the Quest gas, or the Quest monitoring. So if there's a way just to make sure that the agenda and the format are going to meet the expectations of this group and other members of the community, that would be great.
Shelley?
I think that's an excellent suggestion, Tina. And my question to you, Bruce, is there any way we can get the consultant in here earlier?
Well, I wouldn't know unless I ask him. So,
Okay,
I
I'm
mean,
wondering if you would ask him.
We've been trying to find days in February. I'm going to tell you, I don't think it's going to happen in a week or two. But we'll do what we can. And I will just say, I guess Jenny just said it, so I don't need to say it again. I think it's important that we actually have foundation information. Part of what Dr. Shaughnessy's trying to do is get a complete data analysis. He is not interested in being in a public venue, giving his expert opinion, of which he holds and the country holds in high regard, with incomplete data. I think you can respect that. And so he wants to be sure his analysis is done. And if he's going to offer recommendations or insight, I think he wants to be sure he has the data he needs and doesn't want to come in ill-prepared. And so part of it is scheduling him here, but also that he has the information that he needs And I would guess that the medical community is going to want the same opportunity. If we're going to ask them to put their reputation and their expertise on the line and give recommendations, they're going to need to feel comfortable that they've got the data they need. And so we continue to administer the test. So I guess I'm going to ask for some flexibility on this timeline and allow us to put together the information. I'm not sure in a week's time we can do what Tom asked as far as the chronology and all that. I mean, we've got the data, but we've got staff that's pretty busy right now also getting the bond put together, but we can pull them off that work. But I guess I would just ask not to be date certain. Let us do some homework, and I can get back to the leadership of the board and inform them what our options are, and then you can tell us what you'd like to have us do, if that's the pleasure of the board.
Okay. Jenny?
We're going to get a translator too, right?
Well, absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay. Tom?
Yeah, so my motion's on the table and it says within 2 weeks, and I don't care to amend that, and I'd like
Okay.
to call a vote.
Sorry. Previous question's been called. Sandy, please call the vote.
Albright.
No.
Belleville.
No.
Benford. Fuqua.
Yes.
Marquis.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Reed.
No.
Motion passes.
Okay, so we'll have a meeting in 2 weeks. Now, Tom, I'm assuming that's whether or not the experts are available, whether they can come to the meeting or not.
Do what we can, and we can do what we can, and we can schedule subsequent meetings for them.
Okay.
I mean, you know, we've got 4 years' worth of information, 5 years' worth of information to cover, so.
Okay. All right. Any other discussion? Board comments? Shelley?
Yeah, I also want to thank everyone who came forward tonight, the people about testing. I think we're all in agreement that we're losing too much instructional time to testing. I am wondering, Bruce, though, if it's not time for the board to have some discussion about actually asking the state of Colorado to remove themselves from the park consortium. And if we did agree that we wanted to do that, I'm not saying we do, but if we did agree we wanted to do that, how would we do that? What would that look like?
So my understanding is that 2 sessions ago, the state legislature directed the Colorado Department of Education, the State Board of Education, to enter into one of 2 national consortiums, either Smarter Balance or PARC. It was the decision of the commissioner and supported by the State Board of Education that we were at the time actually members of both groups, but you kind of have to decide which one. They ultimately decided to pursue PARC, and so we shifted the state's membership to the PARC consortium, and we've been on that path since then. I think if one was to lobby to change that, I would guess it's a legislative issue. I think you need to have the state legislature change the direction to the State Department of Education to either disassociate with any national consortium or to direct the state to go to Smarter Balance. And I don't know logistically what that would involve. I know the state has a contract with PARC, so I would doubt that they'll refund the money. So that's a contract with Pearson, a company you heard about tonight. But I think it's a legislative action that would require it. So I would guess if that was a resolution the board wanted to pass, we could present it to our lobbyists, and we could begin to make contact with our legislators to see if there's any traction there. But I mean, that's what I think the process would be, because it was a state legislative decision.
Okay, thanks. Then when it comes time for agenda setting, I might put that on the agenda to have us discuss that if possible, or ask that it be put on the agenda. I just want to make some comments about Casey. I knew there were problems that existed at Casey because I've heard from parents in the last month or so. But I was truly unprepared for what I heard tonight. I did not know a lot of what I heard tonight. And what I want to assure the parents of Casey and the staff at Casey is that while this board disagrees on a number of things, I don't think anyone here believes that the safety and well-being of our students isn't the most important thing that we're responsible for here. And I think tonight what we heard was that there's someone here that has medical records that might show that there's some support for a belief that symptoms that are being experienced are linked to toxic levels of gas. That is not something that I think, Bruce, that you were aware of, that there might actually be medical records in support of that. Yeah, and so am I. So since medical records are covered under HIPAA, and we're not allowed to view those publicly, I move that we go into executive session right now and look at those records and see if indeed we think there's a sufficient cause for concern that we might want to take action even before a special meeting.
Jenny?
So I don't feel in any way able to evaluate.
Yeah, I will second it.
Sorry, Sandy. So I don't feel in any way, I don't feel in any way capable of evaluating medical records without having a medical specialist to advise us. And I don't know that we can get one right now. But if we can.
I'm not sure we need a medical advisor right now. I think we could invite the parent who has the medical record to come in with us and explain what the doctor has said. And it's not like we're gonna, we're just gonna take it in as information, Jenny.
Point of order, Lori?
Jim?
I'm reviewing our policy on going into executive session, and I would like legal advice on whether it's permissible to go into, even talk about what this proposal is.
Lori? Lori, I'm looking at the policy.
I have a copy of here, Jim, and it does say matters required to be kept confidential by federal or state law or regulations are appropriate for executive session. And that's what this is HIPAA-protected information. So I think it is appropriate.
Are you asking whether it's a topic for executive session?
Yes.
Confidential information would be a topic.
Tina?
I share some of the concern with Jenny. I don't know how to look at medical records, so I'm not sure in this case if the district should take the lead on that. And because I have no idea what I'm looking for, so I don't know to what end that would serve. So I have some reservation there.
My preference on this would be to ask Bruce to investigate and figure out, review the records with qualified staff or qualified medical experts to determine if it's a urgent matter that needs to be dealt with. And I would assume, Bruce, that you will communicate with us immediately should there be something that you find or discover
As soon as
that
I
is-
have access to them, it's never been suggested that there are any such records before tonight. So I've already sent a note to our lead nurse to pursue all these cases, and we'll review those. And we actually do have people who know how to review that data and have that expertise. I've already initiated the email, Lori. So, and if those records can be brought to Sandy tomorrow, it sounded like that's what the parent indicated she would do, then we'll turn those over to our medical team.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right.
I have a question.
Should we have a vote?
Question first.
Go ahead.
So,
Shelley.
Bruce, I know you can't say exactly, but how soon would you expect to get back to us on that?
Well, I would say, assuming staff are available and it's analysis, we certainly could initiate the analysis tomorrow. It depends on what we receive. If it's not helpful or conclusive, then it could take longer to follow back up with the family and ask for additional records. So, I have no idea what we'll receive. We just have to see.
So let's call for the question. Sandy, are there any other comments? Sam, comments?
I'm just going to
Sorry,
echo
pardon me.
Jenny and Tina on this one. I don't feel I don't know what I'm looking for. I do think they should be evaluated, and I'm very interested in what a medical professional would say about it, but I don't feel qualified to do it.
Okay, Sandy, will you call the roll?
Albright?
No.
Belville?
No.
Benford?
Yes.
Fuqua?
Nope.
Marquis?
No.
Myers?
Yes.
Reed?
No.
Motion fails.
Okay. Shelley, anything else?
I did have a note here. So, Bruce, you were going to address Ms. Snowden's questions about, she had a lot of questions about opting out and what it's going to look like if half the school opts out. Can there be some sort of instruction taking place if that's the case? And are we going to answer those questions somehow?
We worked all this morning with the principals on this. We will not provide alternative instruction. If students come to school and need to be supervised, we'll have a supervised setting like a study hall in the high schools. And we will not offer alternative instruction to students. They won't be able to stay in the test setting if they don't want to take the math test, but they want to be at school. They'll need to go to the study area and be supervised, or they can stay home and be excused. So if they come to school and go to the study hall and refuse to take the test, then they'll be counted present. So I think that answered her question around that.
Okay, so there is a communication.
We are not communicating that. If they refuse, our default is the students stay home. If the students can't stay home because of family logistics, we'll work with the families, and in that case, we'll provide an appropriate level of supervision for the children, but it won't be alternative activities, it won't be alternative instruction, it'll be basically age-appropriate supervised care.
Any other board comments? Discussion? Sam?
On the testing question, are we testing on every floor of Casey?
Absolutely. Absolutely. So there's a fair amount of misinformation you heard tonight, so we'll follow up. We'll put the report together Tom asked for. Yeah, we've tested every corner, every room, every level, repeatedly, so yes.
Well, but I do want to echo the board's concern that each and every one of us takes it very seriously, and we want to have every member of the KC community feel real assured that we are doing everything we can, and if we need to step it up, we will.
Absolutely.
And I'll just, Ms. Yellowhorse, who has left, thank you for meeting with her, and I'd be happy to join you if you need a board member for that meeting.
Thank you for offering that. That's great. Anyone else? Okay, thank you. The next item on our agenda is information about the strategic plan update.
Great. So Dr. Pilch, Deputy Superintendent Dr. Pilch and I are going to do this presentation, so I'm going to join her at the podium.
Okay. I'm sure you've been working hard on this.
Dr. Albright, members of the board, thank you for allowing us to give you an update on the work that we've been doing around the strategic plan. So our commitment to you when we started this work almost 2 years ago, this June, is that we would give it our full attention, and we have, and also we've said we'll give you regular updates. So that's our intent tonight, is to provide you with an update. We were in a work session, I think it was just 2 weeks ago, talking about the strategic plan, and so we want to build on that information. So what you know, but I want to have the viewing public to know as well, is that we are continuing to work with our strategic plan steering committee and the executive committee as we take these next steps in the planning process. And the last time we were together, we visited with you a little bit about identifying targeted outcomes and also key performance indicators. We visited about that so that when we have established our priorities, that we will have targeted outcomes in those areas, and then the key performance indicators will help us keep track towards that. So what we want to do this evening is provide you with an update of a most recent conversation we've had with Education Northwest. Again, just to remind you, Education Northwest is the education laboratory that's in Portland, Oregon. We have contracted for their services to assist us in this process. And so this evening, Dr. Pilch and I will describe to you the work where they're at now, and the work we anticipate over the next month. We are scheduled to be with you in about a month from now to do more in-depth work session on strategic planning. So this is sort of just a quick update for you. One of the things that Education Northwest committed to us that they would do is that they would get to know us in order to work with us and to make recommendations, which we would expect, and I know you would expect as well. So how have they done that? So in recent months, they have conducted school visits. They've been in our schools. They have been involved in classroom observations, working with teachers and staff. They've conducted focus groups and interviews, both with senior management leadership in the district as well as school level. That's been important work. They've also reviewed artifacts. So they've looked at all of those executive summaries and work plans that you've looked at around our strategic plan. They've taken a deep look at our student achievement data. So they've looked at the data we have. So they've spent some time with Dr. Jonathan Dings. They've also looked at the state data on our district. So they've taken a pretty thorough review of that. They've also looked at our English language learning program and our student performance within that area. And also, one of the things that we've asked them to do is to look at the educator effectiveness performance standards or professional standards, we call them, both for teachers and principals, because as we move forward and look at where we want to go and have focus in the district, we want to be sure that our expectations for our professional staff align with that area. So they've, Shelley Landgraf, our Assistant Superintendent for Human Resources, have been involved in that. And also taking a look at all of our data systems, IT, our instructional or information technology, as well as our data collection. How do we manage that data? How do we report that data? So they've been looking a deep dive at our data systems. So we were just with them several hours yesterday, our executive committee. I think as Dr. Pilch and I prepared for this presentation this evening, we are feeling good about the level of understanding that they have of our district. And one of the things, as they begin to make recommendations, I've asked if there are limitations on your recommendations because there's still additional information that you feel like you need to collect or a deeper analysis, then we would like you, to share that with us, and then there may be areas we need you to go even further analysis on. So that's where we are with Education Northwest right now, and again, they spent some time with us yesterday, and Deirdre would like to give you an update on that conversation and what our next steps are.
Good evening. We spent most of the day yesterday, the executive committee, with a team from Education Northwest, where we made plans for some work we'll do going forward with the larger steering committee, as well as all of the co-chairs from the 17 action design teams. Education Northwest has worked with us to deeply synthesize each of those 17 action plans. They know our plans as well as we do now. I was really impressed with their work yesterday and their ability to speak to the plans and their ability to analyze how well we would be able to deliver those plans. What Education Northwest did for us as they synthesized the plans is they looked and said, okay, if we were going to identify the priority areas that the district could get the greatest impact out of for implementing the strategies, what would those areas be? Which action plans would be most likely to begin to address those areas? And then which specific actions and strategies from all the action plans could be pulled up to address those priority areas? So we began some of that work yesterday, and they began to identify some possible priorities for us to look at for the next 12 months. We're going to take that work to the steering committee and the co-chairs later this week, get their input, and share with them the methodology that Education Northwest used to get to some of the recommendations they will be making to us later this week. What they looked at was what is the research telling us, and which of the actions are we most likely to have a good result out of because of the research that Education Northwest has done and the research that they have pulled. They also looked at what are the existing strengths and structures that we already have within the Boulder Valley School District that will better support the implementation of these actions and strategies. They looked at natural sequencing. Which actions would need to occur first in order for other actions to occur later to get the results that we're hoping to attain? And then finally, they looked at which of these plans are the most ready to be implemented? Which of the plans are the clearest and have strategies clearly indicated that this staff would be able to implement? We're taking that work forward to the steering committee and the co-chairs, and we should be within a month ready to bring you priority actions and, as Dr. Messenger indicated, those targeted outcomes and those key performance indicators.
So what you know is that if we keep doing what we've always done, we'll get the same results that we've always had. And that's not what you want, and that's not what we want either. So some of the work that we're going to build on that Deirdre just described is really being clear on those needs and using what we've referred to as high leverage strategies, those things that we know work, and the educational research. So looking at studies over time that will make a difference and then see what we need to do to get there. And we really believe in that next 12-month window that Deirdre described is being really clear on what those targeted outcomes are, what will we accomplish, and then what would be the indicators that will monitor our progress towards that. So that's what you can anticipate next. And obviously, we're going to bring them for your review and your comment and guidance on that. So we have on your calendar March 17th as a work session, our third Tuesday of March. And so that'll be a good opportunity for us to share that and also to have conversation with you about it. And what we've promised you, and we'll be ready by then as well, is that we will have some recommended, what we've called strategic priorities for budget. So those things that in the budget coming forward for the 15-16 school year, that we would say, if we want to do these activities, which we believe will have these outcomes, then we may need some of the, if we have new additional resources, this is how we would like to have you consider investing those, so that we can make that first investment of additional resources in the strategic direction of the district. And so next week, when we have a budget work session, we'll visit with you about that. We won't have the recommendations ready next week, but we want to sort of set that there and say, keep an eye on that. There will be some recommendations coming forward, and we know that this will be a first step in the budget development process with these strategic priorities. We hope in future years, as you do, that this becomes more and more what guides our budget priorities. But we hope to get started. We'll bring recommendations to you, and we hope that we can build those into the budget going forward. So we're looking forward to that work session in about a month, and we feel like we're making good traction, and we've got a great team working with us, both from Education Northwest and our steering committee and our exec committee, and I think we're prepared to answer any questions you might have or hear your comments.
Thank you for your presentation. It was good to have an update and hear what you're thinking and what you're doing and working with Education Northwest. Board members, questions or comments? Tina?
Thanks so much, and it just sounds like you've made a lot of progress, and it seems so encouraging, and I do like the 4 things you outlined in terms of what they are delivering and the synthesis, and it just, I really look forward to hearing more about it at the end of the month.
Good.
Tom?
Yeah, I think this sounds really encouraging. I know we've been struggling, to try to get this together and where it's going to go, what it's going to mean. And I particularly like your comments about deep dive on the data so we can know the problem. You don't know the problem, it's hard to address a solution, high leverage strategies. And in fact, those are the things that I look forward to seeing in our budget coming up is how do we pay for these high leverage activities. And so it's really timely that we get this out in front of us as we get into these budget discussions. So thanks, and I look forward to hearing more about it.
Thanks, Tom.
Nobody else?
Jenny?
So if we're going to be adding things, are we going to be taking things away, do you think? I mean.
You mean like services and reallocating resources, Jenny?
Yeah,
is
well,
that-
yeah, and also taking things off of people's plates. I mean, it was
Yeah.
one of the early lessons I learned when I came on the school board was that if you keep adding things onto people's plates without taking things off, you don't,
Yeah.
you just get a lot of stressed employees and not a lot of effective instruction.
Well, I'd like to maybe address the budget piece, and I'm going to ask Deirdre to talk about the other part of your question there, Jenny, because, we're sensitive to both the actual financial resources as well as the human resource. What we'll bring to you in a few weeks and ultimately more formally in March, will mostly address new resources that we would want to prioritize and allocate as a part of the total new budget. Having said that, we had this very conversation this afternoon with Bill and Leslie about, as we go forward, how we might reallocate resources from a program to an area of emphasis or priority, and we've done that before, and we probably won't be in a position to recommend that strongly this spring, but going forward, we think that is going to be important. That's for new resources. The other thing I would mention is that what we know is within areas, and I'll just use a specific area, under Dr. Ron Cabrera's leadership, instructional services and equity, we have a budget in that area, and we're doing good work. And if some of the recommendations that come out of this very work we're talking about says we ought to shift those resources or prioritize those resources and use them in different ways, that won't call for new money. The money is there. It will simply alter some of the way we invest those resources and prioritize our activities. And, Ron and his team have been very involved, all of our curriculum directors, and so even though that won't be taking a program and moving it, it might be within an area or a department. That's just one example. So we anticipate both of those will happen by next fall. And so, Deirdre, maybe you talk a little bit about the load, because we have talked to our steering committee quite about the human resource side of this.
Absolutely. So a part of what we expect to come out of the work that we'll do with the steering committee and the co-chairs with Education Northwest is just determining which of those things are we going to put on hold, that we're going to wait on in terms of the action plans. But in terms of our current work, we do intend to do a full evaluation over the next couple of years of each department and look at how we're delivering the work and how we're utilizing the resources to deliver that work. Bruce mentioned Dr. Cabrera's department, and what we know is that much of this work is going to require significant professional learning for our staff. If we're going to change what we do for students, we're going to have to change how we work with our students, and that means professional development. We have lots of dollars dedicated to professional development that are in individual departments. It's very likely we would be pulling those back together. We also have lots of individuals who deliver different professional development activities. It is very likely that we would see some of those activities pulled back with a focus on what is identified in the strategic plan.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. We appreciate your ongoing support. We know this has been a journey, but we're getting some mile markers. We're making progress, and we're going to move faster than a snail from here on. So thanks for your patience with that. And we look forward to the work session in March. I would just say in closing, as we provide that leadership and work with the team, some of the work from Education Northwest will eventually wind up in a printed report format, and we'll make that obviously available to you and others. We think it'll be both informative and helpful. So I'd say we're in progress of pulling that together, but we'll provide that report to you as well as we go forward. So, and we see this as probably an ongoing relationship. Each month when we meet with our principals, our school leaders, our principals and assistant principals, we were just with them this morning, always on their agenda is a presentation that Deirdre and I do on the strategic plan, taking these next steps. Because what we know and they know is that the work out of the strategic plan, those very priorities that Deirdre described, will be what guides our district improvement plan going forward and our school improvement plans. And so these won't be parallel plans or dueling plans. They'll be blended and combined. And again, that will take us some time to get that fully where we want it. But as soon as this fall, we anticipate the work that you're going to see in March will begin to influence the work in the schools within their respective school plans as well as the district plan. So we'll give you more on that, and certainly we're going to work with the District Accountability Committee. We've been teeing that conversation up all fall with them on that, so we're looking forward to that as well. So
That clarity of work around the school improvement plans will also assist us in honing down all the work we're asking each of our staffs to do in each of the buildings. So, we're excited about where we're headed, and we look forward to meeting with you again in a month.
Great,
Thank
thanks.
you.
Keep us posted. We've asked for it, and you've done a great job of keeping us up, so thank you very much. It's good to see the progress in this unprecedented work that we're doing here. The next item on our agenda is a legislative update, and let's hear what's going on in the 2015 session.
Well, I'll give a real quick update, and I know Briggs stands ready. You receive each Friday now his legislative update. We're in daily communication. Just got some communication today from this evening from our lobbyists of bills that are starting to, get their attention and ours. So we continue our hard press on school funding. A lot of important things, but we need resources to operate with. So we're working hard to make sure the governor's proposed allocation stays intact. There's lots of folks that would rather use that money in other ways, I suppose, but as an education community, the Superintendent's Coalition did a media release last week and tried to get some attention around that. We had a conversation with the governor on Friday about this work. We just really want to keep that as a high priority. So that's important work. In my role as the co-chair of the Case Legislative Committee, we're obviously monitoring lots of bills, and in the area of assessment, I think there's 20-some bills on assessment that have either been written or drafted or haven't necessarily been introduced. What our associations are doing is really trying to find the best fit for a bill that we can get energy behind, then maybe amend. Also, I'm not sure it'll be where we want it when it's introduced, but that's, so there's a lot of work behind the scenes going on right now. I think a first step will be this 1202 task force on student assessment that we've been having briefings on. We'll certainly look to their recommendations as a starting place, which would reduce the overall assessment. And again, it may be amended to go further than they recommended, but that's as far as they could go in their agreement. So that's an important one. And then the other area that we've talked a lot about in the last couple of months is student data privacy. Andrew Moore, Andrew's here. Andrew has served as a great resource with Melissa's support at the state level, so he's involved with CASE in his professional organization, reviewing legislation, having lots of conversations. So I think we're kind of getting on the edge of that as well, and we'll keep you informed once we see a bill draft that we think aligns with our platform and that we can get behind or work to amend if that's what's necessary. So those are probably, there's lots going on right now. A discipline bill is just getting ready to come out, but it's still pretty early in the session, but we've kind of got everything fired up right now and ready to go. I just want to compliment our leadership team, when we have case legislative committee meetings, it's sort of like a BVSD outing. We have in each of our respective organizations within the umbrella, we are well represented. And so I feel like we're having a really positive, constructive influence, at least within the administrative leadership around these bills. And so it's a pleasure to work with my colleagues doing that. So thanks. And I'd be glad to answer any questions. I know others have been tracking these bills as well.
Okay, great, thank you. Jenny?
So, and Tina, you may have something to add too. As the legislative liaison, I sent out a summary of some of the work that's going on the CDE graduation guidelines. And I hope you took a minute to look at it because there's some good work that is, I don't want to slam all of the work that's been done by CDE because some of it is quite good. And I actually liked the document that came out for talented and gifted graduation guidelines. It's not, it's more of a description of what a good secondary tag program looks like than what I would consider graduation guidelines, but it's still a good document. However, the thing that I think people should be aware of, and some of the people who are, I'm sorry they're not here, the people who are concerned about testing should be aware of, is that the CDE has a menu of competencies that students who are in 6th grade this year will have to demonstrate choosing from that menu in order to graduate from high school, and I am very concerned. And I was glad when I went to this last meeting they had that I was not the only person in the room that had great concern about the menu of options. I have real concerns about using exit exams from high school. I just think that's not the way to go. It seems to me like successful completion of a high school class ought to be evidence of competency in an area. And so especially I just think that we should be setting standards for ourselves that students who complete high school courses are competent in those courses, successfully complete them. But that's not what CDE is asking for, and I laid out some of my concerns, but I am really concerned that that the selections they've chosen are not designed to be high school exit exams. PARC is not designed as a high school exit exam. That some of the choices are very narrow, and that the ones that are not PARC all have costs associated with them. So there's ACT or SAT or an AP, taking an AP exam or taking an IB exam, but all of those things have costs associated with them. And, or you can enlist in the Army and get, pass the competency exam for that. However, I don't know that that's what I think our community really wants as an outcome. So I'm very concerned, and I hope you will look at that menu and join me in my concern. I haven't decided what to do about it yet, although I'm assuming that we have staff that's following that as well.
Anyone else?
I would just maybe add to Jenny's comments real briefly. Jonathan Dings is serving on a work group specifically with Elliot Asp from the Colorado Department of Education on this very issue. We had conversation with Commissioner Hammond last week about this and his team. I think the leadership of CD is consistent with what you just said, Jenny, and so the capstone experience and the different pathways. There was an article in the Denver Post in the last week about this. So we anticipate this will be back before the State Board of Education this spring. So we'll monitor that real close, and it might be of value to at least have written correspondence on that, if not public testimony on it. Again, I think it's a bit of a journey, but if we can make some progress on these points you just made versus where we were a year ago, I think that'd be a good next step. So we're absolutely tracking this closely. Thanks, Jenny.
Shelley?
I'd just like to add, Jenny, that all the tests that you just listed, AP, IB, ACT, et cetera, all that money is going to the same corporation, College Board. And if it's not going to College Board, it's going to Pearson for PARC. So to the gentleman's point earlier, that's what's behind all this testing right there. It's not about the kids. It's not about testing their mastery. It's about profit.
Or college admissions, how they select kids. Other comments on graduation or anything else? No? Okay, Well, Briggs, unless you have something to say, I don't know. Thank you for being here and being our legislative liaison and speaking up. I mean, it's just critical for Boulder Valley, you know, that our legislators hear from our community, I think, about what their concerns are, so. The next item on our agenda is action items, consent groupings, and I'll read them. 8.1, personnel items. 8.2, approval of minutes, January 27th, 2015 special meeting. 8.3, approval of minutes, January 27th, 2015 regular meeting. 8.4, approval of minutes, February 4th, 2015 special meeting. 8.5, acceptance of donation, instructional services and equity. 8.6, district-wide learning management system acquisition. Do I have a motion to approve? Sam, second. Jenny, discussion. Or are there any items that anyone would like to pull? Seeing no items to pull, are there any comments or questions? Seeing none, Sandy, please call the vote.
Albright.
Yes.
Belleville.
Yes.
Benford. Fuqua.
Yes.
Marquis.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Reed.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is agenda setting. And Shelley, you had an item.
I do. I would like to have an opportunity for the board to discuss the value of the state of Colorado being part of the park consortium and how BVSD could address that if the board decides to, whether that's a resolution, whether that's a visit with our legislators, you know, what that would look like.
Okay. Anyone else? Looks like we have a full agenda coming up. Okay. Well, seeing no other, we'll talk about that at our next agenda setting meeting. And seeing no other discussion, this meeting is adjourned.